Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. Tony, the TSA in Alaska found moose droppings in a man's carry-on bag.
Tony Kornheiser, that's nuts. I only packed my own droppings.
Okay, how could moose droppings even get inside of anyone's carry-on bag? How's that happen?
I just think that is such a great phrase, moose droppings. I mean, I never really thought of it before, but I'd be willing to give $10 to anybody who would put moose droppings in a carry-on bag, don't you think?
Have you been to Alaska? Have you ever been? Because
I have not. I know you've been. You took that cruise, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I've been. There's 4 states I haven't been to. 5. I'm sorry, there's 5 because neither Alaska nor Hawaii, and I know you've been to both. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, the Bucks beat the Celtics. Bryce Harper gets booed, and CeCe Sabathia puts up a big number. But we begin today with Scott Foster not particularly influencing last night's Golden State-Houston game, and the Warriors winning that game with their 5 starters playing well but not great. The big deal in the game was James Harden being struck in both eyes inadvertently by Draymond Green and missing 11 minutes. Harden was 9 of 16 after being injured, but there is reasonable concern about his well-being, considering after the game he said he could, quote, barely see, unquote. So, Wilbon, where does this leave Houston?
Well, Tony, they've got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off, both teams, obviously, because Game 3 is in Houston Saturday.
Right.
That has to help Harden. You know where you can look at this and say more time doesn't help him. He looked like Joe Frazier, like midway through the Thriller in Manila last night, Tony, with the blood in both eyes, and then the left eye, I guess, was swelling. But again, 9 for 16 with blurred vision.
That's right.
But you know what, Tony? It still leaves them in this place. Look, Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, and Kevin Durant have not had prolific scoring nights. They haven't. As a trio, they're shooting 41.5% from the floor so far in 2 games. But they're going to have to get from James Harden the kind of game we talked about incessantly during the regular season, where he scores 45 or 48 and Chris Paul has 12 to 14 assists. They're going to have to get that kind of game where this series is going to go no longer than 5.
All right, so thank you for coming over to my side of the street on this. I am not saying this is going to be a sweep, and I'm not saying that Golden State would win this thing easily, but I'm saying that what we've seen so far is that Golden State is a better team. So for Golden State to lose, Kevin Durant would have to get very cold. He'd have to stop shooting. Steph Curry, instead of breaking something or dislocating a finger on his left hand, would have to break his right hand. Draymond Green would have to get 10 technicals. I just think that one team is better than the other. They've proven it year after year in the playoffs. I'm sorry this is not the conference final. And I want to add this one thing about Scott Foster. And the notion that Houston believes that Scott Foster hates them. If I have these numbers correct, Houston had 25 free throws last night, and Golden State had 24, which means this can go, the Scott Foster thing, in the junk pile, because it's junk, right? I mean, we can stop with it, can't we? We can stop?
Well, I stopped with it last night because it was irrelevant. But, Tony, when all 3 of those guys on Golden State, all right, Thompson, Curry, Durant, when they're mediocre even by their standards,
if they win,
and they get great games from Draymond Green and Andre Iguodala, Tony, they're better. When those 5 guys play like they did last night, then nobody's going to beat them.
They're better, and if Harden is not 100%, they have no chance.
No,
they have no
that's
chance.
Right. That's right. All right, Tom, let's get to a team that had a little more success at bouncing back after a Game 1 loss. Milwaukee Bucks. After a slow start, Giannis found his midseason MVP form for the rest of the game. And he got the requisite help offensively from Chris Middleton, who hit 7 threes. The Celtic Stars, meanwhile, struggled, especially but not exclusively Kyrie Irving. He was 4 for 18. Giannis got the blame for the Bucks' loss in Game 1. You don't want to put Game 2 all on Kyrie, do you, Tony?
Well, I mean, I'm tempted to because I like to cast him in a particular light that suits my purposes, but I'm not going to do that. He was 4 for 18. Gordon Hayward was 1 for 5. Those 2 people cannot be 5 for 23 and the Celtics win. It's not going to work that way. Kyrie's line was particularly awful. It's 9 points, Mike, 4 assists, and 3 turnovers. You don't draft a kid like that out of college. But we expected Milwaukee to win. This series is 1-1. Boston has taken the home court back.
That's right.
I mean,
That's right.
We sat here. We both thought Milwaukee would win, and so I'm not blaming it on Kyrie Irving. Maybe this was his one bad game in the series, and it's out of his system.
I was trying to trip you up. Good that you didn't take
Oh.
it. Tatum. By the way, Tony, Jason Tatum's done nothing so far. 5 points, 2 for 10. Brown had a pretty good game. He had 16 points. But Rozier was 2 for 10 as well. And you mentioned Hayward. So, no, there's an ensemble. As great as Kyrie Irving is, and he's the champion on that team, he's the guy with the ring, it's an ensemble. And they have to play better. It's sort of like Golden State, even though maybe Golden State light, their 5 aren't as good as the Hampton 5 or whatever you want to call them. But those guys have to be better than that. But, Tony, you're right. They still have the advantage.
They do.
They won the one game in Milwaukee. They had to. But, Tony, big ups to Giannis for saying, no, we don't need to make a bunch of adjustments. We need to play. And he went out even after a shaky start.
Fine.
They played last night. Milwaukee, Tony, this
That's right.
series could be a 6 or 7 game series.
Oh, no, I
as well.
agree with that. It would not surprise me at all if it was 2-2 going back to Milwaukee. I just thought that by the end of the third quarter, that game was, there was no, that was not a great game. There was no drama in that.
No, that
game.
was that. They got blowed out.
There was nothing there. Welcome, Philadelphia, Bryce Harper. Last night, Harper was booed again by the home crowd after going 0 for 4 and striking out twice. After a hot start, particularly against his old team, the Nationals, Harper's hitting just .138 with 13 strikeouts in his last 10 games. Harper said after last night's game he'd boo too. Wilbon, has Harper been a disappointment?
Tony, this whole story, this whole theme is tiresome. I mean, Philly fans booing is not news.
No.
That's like cold in Chicago being a story, or not raining in California. It's just not. I don't understand. This is not everything is a big deal. Despite the way we treat things in sports media and social media and 24/7 news cycle, it's not a big deal they boo in Philadelphia. They don't know how to do anything else. So I'm not ready to sit and judge Bryce Harper's season because he's played a month as anything.
Right.
As anything. I mean, it's a month. So it's 1/7 of the season. So maybe you want to judge Philadelphians. I don't care to.
No. My sense of it is that everybody sat down wherever they were sitting when he signed, and they saw that he signed for $330 million, and he obligated himself to a particular team in a particular city for 13 years, and that city was Philadelphia. They said, whoa, he's going to get booed. He's going to get booed every single year. This is what's going to happen in Philadelphia.
Month.
Yeah, so that I agree with you that is not news. But I want to say this about Bryce Harper. Because as a Nationals fan, I miss him, and I think the Nationals miss him. He is a big-time power hitter. You have to work carefully in a lineup when he's in that lineup. He is a threat all the time. He is a big moment hitter. It may be, Mike, that down the road, his one great MVP season is his only great season. That may be. But I know I look at the Nats lineup, they don't have a guy like this. They don't have somebody that every time he comes up, you need to worry. And even if he's playing badly in Philadelphia, especially with Hoskins as well, you got to worry going through that lineup. These are big-time hitters, don't you think? And they're in first place.
You got those 3 young studs. I had to read the other day about how monumental it was that 23 guys under 21 hit home runs for the first time in Major League history in one lineup. What about 3 guys under 22? I mean, these things are so stupidly drawn.
Bryce Harper is a big-time hitter.
You got young studs. You got to wait on them. You got to feed and grow them.
And I understand that. I understand that. But when you look at the Dodgers, that's a very tough lineup to go through because there are so many guys who can bang it out. It's important. That's the way baseball's played now.
Seems like the only milestones we talk about in baseball anymore are related to home runs. So I'm thrilled to talk about CC Sabathia recording his 3,000th strikeout yesterday, making him only the 3rd left-hander to do so. Joining Steve Carlton and Randy Johnson, that's it, that's the list. Giving Sabathia's career record, Tony, now of 247 and 154. And the 3,000 strikeouts.
Yeah.
Aren't we talking about something pretty close to automatic Hall of Fame?
That's an interesting choice of words, automatic, because I don't necessarily think it's automatic. I think he has helped tremendously by being in the company, as you say, with Carlton and Randy Johnson, who are all-time pitchers from the left side. They're all-time pitchers, no matter what. Was CC Sabathia a dominant pitcher for, let's say, an 8 to 10 year period? If we're talking about the Hall of the very, very good, he's automatically in. If we're talking about the Hall of Fame and the great, I'm going to give you 2 names that I think are important. Jim Cott and Tommy John. They pitched longer. Jim Cott has 283 wins, which is 36 more than Sabathia. Tommy John has 288, which is 41 more than Sabathia. And they're not in. And their ERAs are lower than
Yeah.
Sabathia. If Sabathia gets in at 3.69, and that'll probably go up this year, he'd have the third highest ERA among pitchers in the Hall of Fame. So I think he will get in. But if you say automatic, I'm not certain of that.
Yeah, I understand that, Tony. I also think, how many losses does Jim Cott have? He's over 200, right?
They both have more losses. They have smaller winning percentages.
Yeah,
yes.
The winning percentages aren't as big.
That's right.
First of all, you and I sat, being the old guys we sat in the newsroom about 6 months ago, and we were both amazed about Jim Cott not being in because we both think he ought to be in.
Yep.
And so, Tony, I think as you move along, it's just like figuring out, people look back at numbers of NBA players and they go, well, what was his three-point shooting percentage? What? He didn't shoot threes? I mean, the line moves. The criteria moves on. It evolves. And I think Sabathia is in. I really do.
He had a great, great half season with Milwaukee. He was the best pitcher. He was the best pitcher in baseball. I don't know that it'll take a veterans committee, but it's not first ballot. It's not, automatic. No, we're not in the automatic stage, I don't think. Danny Ferry has interviewed with the Washington Wizards for their vacant general manager job. Now, he's local for us, having gone to DeMatha High School and growing up minutes from the old Capitol Center where the Bullets played. His father, Bob, was the team's general manager for 17 seasons. Now, there is the ongoing problem that Ferry was recorded saying this of Luol Deng, quote, he's got some African in him. He has a storefront out front that's beautiful and great, but he may be selling some counterfeit stuff behind you, unquote. Well, Ferry was interim GM for New Orleans this season. All told with what we're talking about, is he hireable at the GM level?
Tony, I think he is, but this is so complex. Danny Ferry's a Washingtonian, period. I mean, people may not know that out there. They remember they picked up his career at Duke and he played in the league for a long time. Okay, fine. Danny Ferry's a Washingtonian, and he was reading, supposedly, reportedly, a scout's report. These weren't said to be his words, or he didn't. You and I have known Danny Ferry his whole life, literally.
Yes.
Danny Ferry, if he's going to be hired in Washington and have the relationship he's always had with his hometown and the people in it, he's going to have to sit down and talk about this further. I've talked about it with Danny Ferry, and I'm betting you have too. To me, Danny Ferry is hireable. If Ted wants to hire him, if Ted Leonsis wants to hire Danny Ferry to come and be the man, the boss of the team that his father led for nearly 2 decades, that's fine. But I think Danny's going to have to get into this layers deep in that town because people are going to want to feel comfortable with him like they did when he was 10 years old and 20 years old and his whole life. And Danny may not want to do that, but that would be my advice. I think that has to be done.
It's a little dicey in this regard. You can read those statements and you can say they are disqualifying. You can say that in a league that is overwhelmingly comprised of black athletes, that free agents wouldn't come and play for Danny Ferry, wouldn't play in Washington, and maybe that's true. But if we live in a second chance society, you got to be able to get a second chance in your hometown, right, Mike? I mean, if you don't get one there, and if you're not willing to divest yourself of all of this, strip it bare and talk about it, and you don't get one there, you're not going to get one. And I think we both think that he is hireable here.
Absolutely.
Here,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's take a break, but coming up, is it a good sign or a bad sign that Tiger is not playing this week?
And does Brad Marchand deserve punishment for that rabbit punch last night? What was that?
By the way, if you're worried about free agents in Washington, they don't come here anyway.
They don't.
Presented by Hornitos, part of Happy Hour.
The honorary doctor of humane letters is in the house for What's the Word. Let's get the first one from the producer over the loudspeaker.
It's blank that Tiger decided not to play this week.
It's predictable. The moment that he won the Masters, you knew he was not playing anything else but majors because in his head, he's the old Tiger and the only thing that matters is majors. The PGA was never in May before. Now it's close to the Masters. He used to have to wait to the U.S. Open in late June. He's going to probably play the Memorial to let Jack Nicklaus know they're still pals, but he's chasing him again. And then he's going to play the U.S. Open and the British Open. Mike, this is all he's in it for now, not the Wells Fargo majors.
Then he won't win anything because it's undermining. Because I'm sorry, maybe you weren't paying attention, but I was. Tiger can't go back to playing that old schedule of 15 times a year.
Why?
I'm not saying he's going to be VJ
Why?
and play 40 times a year, but he ain't going to win jack.
Did you watch
He has
the
to
Masters?
play. Yeah, because he played a schedule the last couple of years to get himself back.
Ooh,
And Tony, he can't practice like he used to.
No.
What do you pay attention? Do you watch his schedule?
Chasing Jack.
He's not going to win
Next.
anything.
Brad Marchand's shot to Scott Harrington's head was blank.
Cheap. It was really, really cheap. Harrington wasn't even looking at him, and he popped him in the head. I know he didn't knock his head off. That's not the point. It's the wrong way to go. Marchand is the guy that licks people all the time. An appropriate punishment may be to cut off a small piece of his tongue. This is just, you can't do this. And now what we're getting, Columbus is up 2-0. We're going to look at that great Columbus, Carolina.
2-1, not 2-0.
Columbus, Carolina, Eastern Conference Finals that America's salivating for.
Because you're not watching anyway. You just want stars. You don't care who's playing. You don't care what the teams are like. As long as you can say, oh, there's Crosby over there in aisle 3.
They're out.
So I'm glad they're winning, and I hope they just humiliate the entire thing that you want.
What's your word?
My word is noogies.
Noogies?
It's noogies. It's nothing. He didn't do anything. It's what you do to your little brother, except you didn't have a little brother.
I didn't have a
somebody
little
maybe
brother.
did it to you.
Yeah. The people did it to me, and I turned around and whacked them. Next!
Last one. Derek Jeter should feel blank about sending down Lewis Brinson.
He should feel sheepish. He should not come out of his house. He should not be seen anywhere in town. This guy, Brinson, was allegedly the centerpiece in the trade that sent Christian Yelich away, and all he did was immediately become the NL MVP. So how's Brinson doing? 197 this year, 199 last year. Jeter got 3 other warm bodies in that trade, none of whom are in the majors right now. They're just, you know where the Miami team is now? They're DFL. That's Jeter.
Well, that's what they've been before Jeter got there, but still at the moment, he should feel naked. You're right. And that means he can't go anywhere and can't leave his house because he's naked. To get nothing for Christian Yelich, I mean, that's got to be embarrassing for any baseball executive, especially somebody, Derek Jeter.
Yes,
Derek Jeter's
that's
a
right.
god.
Yeah,
I mean, he just got,
right.
Did he get swindled? Did he just make a mistake? It's just,
Oof, bad. Eat your words, Wilbon. Let's take one last break, but still to come. Dwayne Haskins finds out whether he'll be able to wear Joe Theismann's number 7.
Are you going to run a pharmacy for 6 hours before you get out of there in that coat?
It's a nice
Who
coat.
has the edge tonight in game 2 between the Blazers and the Nuggets?
It's a nice coat. I'm telling you, Tiger thinks he's Tiger again.
I want Tiger to win every week, but you can't.
Happy time, people. Happy 28th birthday, Marcus Stroman. Stroman is the ace of the Toronto Blue Jays staff. His record isn't much at 1-3, but he leads the majors in ERA with 1.43. Amazingly, Kenny Rosenthal is reporting that the Blue Jays are looking to move Stroman in order to get more young talent in Vlad Guerrero Jr.'s age range, which is 20. Wilman, isn't a 28-year-old ace something worth having?
Here's my answer to that. I hope Theo is on the line at some point in the next week or 2 with the Blue Jays. I'd like to see him in that other blue uniform.
Happy anniversary, Nolan Ryan. On this day 28 years ago, at the age of 44 and in his 25th season, Nolan Ryan threw his 7th career no-hitter. We celebrate Tom Brady justifiably for doing things in football no one has ever done at 41. Nolan Ryan was 44 when he got Robbie Alomar Jr. on a strikeout to end his 7th no-no. No one has 6, no one has 5. Only Sandy Koufax has 4. In fact, if you add Sandy Koufax and Cy Young together, you get to 7.
Isn't he the greatest late bloomer of all time, Nolan?
Great pitcher. Happy trails to this 99-mile-per-hour fastball. Felipe Vasquez of the Pirates threw it, and Joey Gallo of the Rangers turned on it and hit it 467 feet to right center. Richard Justice of MLB.com told me on my podcast today that Joey Gallo is the prototypical modern hitter. All he does is hit home runs, walk, or strike out.
And he hits the home runs into empty seats, which is another sign that people are saying, to some baseball.
Yeah, we're going to go back and forth on that, you and I, because I think that people like home runs, but maybe not everything else that goes with home runs, like all the strikeouts. Let's go to the big finish.
Let's do
Joe
it.
Theismann gave Dwayne Haskins permission to wear number 7. Are you happy about that?
We both predicted this yesterday. This is not a surprise, but it's good news. On a recording, the former Arizona assistant says Sean Miller paid DeAndre Ayton $10,000 a month. I don't believe that. Do you?
Well, I'll say this. If it is true, or if anything close to that is true, Sean Miller has to go. Can't have him. The Sharks beat the Avalanche last night. You said the Avs would win. Would you please explain yourself?
Well, they were down 2-0, Tone. They came back to tie it, but they still lost, so I lose. Islanders, Hurricanes, Blues, Stars tonight. Who you got, hot shot?
Well, I, of course, have the Islanders, the team of my youth, and they're down 0-2 at the moment. You say that I like Stars, so I'll take Dallas. And by the way, you had the other game wrong, too. You were 0 for 2 last night.
0 for 2.
Last one, Blazers, Nuggets. The world awaits game 2 tonight. Who you got?
I awaited, and I got the Blazers winning to even that series at 1, Tony. I think that's going to be a 6 or 7 gamer.
We're out of time. We'll try and do better the next time. And I'm Tony Kornheiser.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, Knuckleheads. You can get the PTI podcast on the ESPN app or Apple Podcast.
Ann McDonough, the Ferryman, on Broadway. Shout out. Where's my flag?